tuned into Tomcat Tales, the story of Ashland's legends from the gridiron, the court, the diamond, and beyond. It's a deep dive into Ashland Tomcat sports history. Now, here's your host, Mark Maynard.
Welcome back, and we have a special guest in here tonight. We have Vic Marsh, the winningest coach in Tomcat football history and the owner of the last state championship the Tomcats have won, and that was in 1990, a mere 30 years ago. Vic, welcome in to Tomcat Tales.
Thanks, Mark. Glad to be here.
It's hard to believe that many years have passed since we since we won that championship, and I'll never forget that year. It was a great year. You know, the Reds won the World Series later that fall, and I actually got to cover the Reds in the World Series that year, so that was pretty exciting for me. But winning a state championship, our area really, hadn't won one in a long time. I think Russell, in '78 was the last one before this 1990 championship. So it'd been a pretty good dry spell even for the area. So 1990 was really an exciting year, great year at Putnam Stadium, watching one of the best teams that I ever saw play. There's no question about it. And I know a lot of Tomcat fans were excited to watch that team play. And it's interesting, Vic, as it so often happens. It's usually from a bunch of players who played the previous year, who gained that experience, and then they're ready to go. And it was much the same with this team, wasn't it?
Oh, yes. Most of the 90 starting lineup all started in '89. And, that was a good year, too, although we had some setbacks right at the very end. But it was mostly a very experienced team coming back.
Right. Yeah, let's talk about that '89 team just for a moment. That team finished 9-3, and really the turning point in that season, and maybe the turning point for what turned out to be great in the 1990 season, was in the third game of the year. You all played Greenup County, and Greenup was really tough back in those days. For those couple 3 years, really good team. And
yeah, they won a state championship or state at large in '76.
Right. Yeah, they were. 77. Yeah, they were the state large in 77. Yeah. And they had some good teams through those years too. I mean, that maybe didn't do great in the playoffs, but they were pretty formidable. And anyway, that game you guys lost that year. You lost 6-0. It was at Greenup. And I'll tell you something I remember about it. I remember I walked the sidelines because their press box was always real crowded, and I walked the Ashland sidelines, and it was a frustrating night for you guys. You could tell, your teams hardly ever got shut out. So I know that was frustrating for you.
That killed me.
Yeah, yeah. Because it just didn't happen very often, just to be honest. But you all made a decision, I guess that next week in practice, to put Juan Thomas in the backfield, and you had a really good Ironton football team coming to Putnam Stadium that next Friday night.
Well, we had two small backs, Billy Keaton and Anson Washington. And they were just, they weighed 150 pounds. And every time it came down to a short yardage situation, where you got to put your head down and just go, we weren't able to do that. And we were getting ready to play Ironton, and so we made the decision to take Juan, who was our tight end, and put him in the backfield. Now, Juan was a man. I mean, he weighed 230 pounds at that time. And so we put him in there. And Mark, and I'm not lying to you, within one practice, he learned the whole offense. Of course, wow. He learned it as he was playing tight end. And that really impressed me. So anyway, we got down to a short yardage situation. We moved on into the backfield. That's usually why we're 89 is the running back. Mm-hmm. And we got the first down a couple of times. But anyway, long story short, he wound up, we left him in there, and he wound up having a pretty good night. I don't know what his stats were, but he wound up having a pretty good night. And when the game was over with, Bob Lutz, the head coach of Ironton, who's a man of very few words, He never comes. He just comes across the field, win, lose, or draw, say good game, and he turns around and walks off. He came across and shook my hand. He said, leave the big boy in the backfield.
Not that you needed that advice, but...
I told him, I said, Bob, don't worry. He's going to stay there.
when you saw that, I'm sure really it was like, wow, we may have something here. Because, that team kind of lacked that fullback. You didn't really have that guy that could barrel over people. I mean, both those other guys were pretty quick and good running backs. They weren't one. That's for sure.
Well, no, they could run. They were fast, but they just didn't have any.
Yeah.
They didn't have any weight in the rear end, as the old football saying goes.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, Juan, was he ever a running back before that? Do you know?
No. He always played a tight end.
That's interesting. Of course, he's. I don't see what he was listed at here. I'm trying to find him on the roster. Well, for some reason, I don't know why we don't we have him on the roster, but we don't have him listed. But I think that year he was at least 6'3" and probably 220, 225.
Oh, at least. I never knew how much he weighed, but he was at least 6'3". Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm looking at this Tomcat record book, and he didn't lead you in rushing in the Ironton game, but he sure did every other game after that. And
well, that's because we left him where he's supposed to be.
So that team ends up 9-3, and you get in the playoffs. You beat Russell in a really good game at Russell District Championship. You beat them 32-14.
Right.
And then Belpre comes to Putnam Stadium for the first round of the playoffs, and they had a great team that year, as they typically always do. And they put it on you guys 31-14. That ended that season 9-3, which was really after the slow start. That was a really good season. You had to.
What most people don't realize, and I hesitate to say this, but Jimmy Benting, who was our starting tackle, his dad passed away that week.
Oh yeah.
And we had the funeral, and it was just everybody. They loved Jimmy. They loved his dad. I loved his dad. He was a great guy.
Yeah.
And, it's just like everybody was, trying to run in mud.
Yeah. Yeah. Emotionally, they were kind of shot, weren't they?
Oh, yeah. We were just drained. The whole team was. I was trying to coach.
If I'm not mistaken, didn't they all go to the funeral like the day of the game, or?
Yes, they did. The funeral was the day of the game.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
And, there was more tears in the locker room after the game because of Jimmy's dad than there was because we lost. I mean,
right. Yeah, that's right. Well, you love your teammates, and, you hate anything that hurts them for sure. So, but, you go into the off season, Vic, and I know you're looking. You got to be looking at that roster, thinking, you know what, all these guys are back, and we have a chance maybe to be pretty good. I mean, I don't know if you were thinking state championship good, but let's talk about the off season and how that kind of went. What was your all thinking during that?
Well, when you look at the fact that we had 4 out of 5 offensive linemen back, and you got one in the backfield, and you got David Brown coming in as the starting quarterback. He didn't start at 89, but he was a free safety. He started free safety. And David Brown had ice water in his veins. He never got too far up. He never got too far down. He was even keeled. And we knew we could be pretty good, particularly with the offensive lineman coming back.
Right.
But we didn't know what to do with one. And, so we spent the whole winter talking about what we were going to do offensively. And David could throw the ball, but we knew that he couldn't throw it accurate downfield. I mean, he couldn't throw it 30, 40 yards down the field. And so we just kind of was groping in the dark all winter and into summer practice, basically. We just didn't know what we were going to do. So we just decided we'll just put in a basic offense and see where we go. But
most of the time, you ran like a split back
yes.
formation most of the time, right, through your career up to that point.
Yeah, split backs or I backs, one of the two, but mainly split backs. Yes.
Yeah. So, well, you go ahead and tell us the story on how the wishbone came to be for this team.
Well, the wishbone came to be because the summer practice, we didn't have half of our athletes there because they were all playing baseball. I mean, from the sophomore team, sophomore bunch, all the way to the senior bunch. I mean, I could listen, but I'm not going to. I spent the whole first week of summer practice playing quarterback and wore my arm out. I mean, you know, we just did not have a quarterback. And so anyway, when we finally got everybody together the second week of practice, things just didn't seem to be going right. We had Chris Huck as one running back and Juan at the other running back. And things just didn't seem to be kosher. You know, you could always sense that things don't just seem to be right. And we were talking one day in the office after practice, and Dave Arthur said, "What about the wishbone?" And I said, "Well, Dave, you know I love the wishbone, but we do not have a running back that's a fullback caliber fullback. Other than Juan. I'm not going to move Juan to fullback." And so he said, "Charlie Johnson." And well, then you could see the whole coaching staff in the office. Like the light bulbs started coming on everywhere. And so we moved Charlie. And one of the things I learned about this, Mark, you could take a skill kid and ask him to move to a line, and he's not happy. But you take a lineman and ask him to move into the backfield, and he's tickled to death.
Now, Charlie, was he a guard or a tackle?
He was a guard.
Okay.
And he probably would have been one of the better guards in the state.
Yeah. I mean, he was strong as an ox.
So when we moved Charlie into the backfield and went to the wishbone, it's just like, the floodgates open. It's just like everybody knew that this is what we needed to do.
Yeah, right. Your wishbone experience, obviously Herb ran the wishbone, obviously, and I know you came up under Herb, and you coached the Coles. You all probably ran the wishbone there.
Yes.
And so you knew the wishbone. It just wasn't throughout your early part of your career or up to that point. It wasn't really your choice of offense necessarily, or you just try to put the personnel where you have it, right? I mean, and as you said, with the wishbone, if you don't have that fullback, you're kind of sunk, aren't you?
Yeah, you got to have a fullback, and you're right. I mean, I never played on a team that ran a wishbone. I mean, I watched Texas on TV, and Oklahoma and those people, but I didn't know anything about it until I got back to Ashland and Herb Connolly hired me. And of course, he was a big wishbone man.
Oh, yeah.
So I learned the wishbone from Coach Connolly. I mean, I give him the credit for that.
Yeah. I thought that was the case, and obviously, so the basic principles of it, and you had, as you've already said, you had a pretty daring quarterback who you kind of need that too, don't you, to run the wishbone effectively. I mean, he's got to make all kinds of decisions, and man, that guy was David Brown. He was unbelievable. He really was.
Well, Mark, what a lot of people don't know is that the 90 team was probably the worst passing team that ever existed. we never passed because we got into a passing situation. We put the ball in David Brown's hands and said, "You figure it out. Let's go." Well, and we called an option, and David was master at running the option.
Oh yeah, I remember asking you about it once, and you said, "Well, that is our pass." The option, when we run the option, that is our pass.
Yeah. That's like a lot of coaches now say that little quick screen they throw out there real quick to the wide receiver is their running play.
Yeah.
Well, The opposite was our pass.
That was the only time the ball was in the air.
Yeah, pretty much.
So, yeah, just looking at the stats here, Vic, David threw 47 passes the entire season. You're talking 15 games.
There's high schools that do that now in one game.
Oh yeah, exactly. I mean, that's just really that is insane. But you know, when you have an offense like you had with and running backs like you had, I mean, you know, Thomas was not only powerful, but he was pretty fast too for a big guy.
Once he got in the open, he could outrun just about any defensive back. Or most defensive backs in high school didn't want to take him on one-on-one.
Right. And Chris Hutt, you know, that he's one of my favorite backs to ever cover. Just, I mean, that guy was lightning. I mean, he had some power too. So
he's probably one of the fastest kids I ever coached. I mean, he was. He could outrun just about anybody.
Yeah, and he outran a lot of people that year, as did Juan, and of course Charlie just ran over people.
Charlie was Charlie, put his head down and go.
He never. I mean, I can remember watching him like look for people to tackle him and just run at him. Those poor little defensive backs who wanted no part of him, you know. And I'll never forget. Bill Tom Ross told me after you all opened the season with them and just destroyed them, 41-8, and he said Charlie Johnson was like trying to tackle a rolling manhole cover.
Yeah, well, that's about it. He wasn't very tall.
Yeah.
But Charlie was an athlete. And he was one of those baseball players we didn't have the first week of practice.
Yeah.
And he, once he put his head down, you couldn't get to his legs. If you couldn't get to his legs, you couldn't take him down.
Yeah, you weren't getting him down. You couldn't. It was hard to get lower than him was the thing, you know.
But that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he always had the leverage on you. But yeah, he broke tackles all year long, and was just and you're right. There's nobody that enjoyed becoming a running back probably more than him. You know, of course his brother Mike was, you know, great running back for you. Just the previous, you know, 2 years previous. You know,
Mike was a heck of a running back, Mr. Inside.
Oh yeah, I mean, that guy was unreal. Really, he's a great running back. Of course, their dad, Mike Johnson, played on the '67 champions, so you know the apples didn't fall far from the tree, I guess.
Not in that family. Not in that family.
Of course, you know the statistics on this team are unbelievable. Really, you ended up rushing for, at the time, I think it was like fourth in the nation all time.
It was, yes. Yeah,
5,285 yards rushing. You know, you had 3,000-yard rushers, which, you know, these are things that don't happen, you know, in a normal year. But we're going to kind of go game by game, and I know that's taxing your memory probably a little bit, but we'll probably not. You probably remember these like yesterday.
Mark, I remember the wins. I don't remember the scores.
You opened up with Raceland. You won 41-8. Of course, Raceland had some good teams. I mean, Bill Tom, he loved bringing teams to Putnam Stadium. I mean, it was a good measure of for them, I think, you know, of what they could do and what they could be. And so he always, you knew it was going to, you know, you expected a tough game from him always, I'm sure.
Well, you know, of course, I coached with Bill Tom. I was freshman coach, but, you know, when he was in 75, when he was on the varsity with Coach Conley. And I've known Bill Tom. I looked at him as a good friend. And in many instances, mentor. I would call him and ask for advice. Mm-hmm. And so when we decided to set up this first game of the year, Bill Tom said, I want to play somebody good and get a measuring stick on how good we can be. Mm-hmm. Not how good we are at the beginning of the year, but how good we can be.
Right.
And, of course, being from Ashland, I knew Raceland has a tremendous program. And, you know, they're good year in and year out. So we started this series. And I think for the most part, every year, both of us got something out of it.
Yeah. there were years when that game was really tight. And
yeah.
And in fact, in '88, when you had a really good team in '88, you only beat them 7-6 that year in your home opener, and obviously, sometimes
they beat us in '91.
Yeah, and they beat you in '91 with that really good team that came back after the state championship. So yeah, I mean, it wasn't like a gimme game,
No, it never was. It never was.
Right. But this year,
I know a lot of people took it that way.
Yeah.
But I know Raceland didn't, and we made sure our kids did.
Right. And like you said, Raceland had enough of success that your kids knew, yeah, they're pretty good, and they played them, previous years and everything else. This night though, you guys were far better. Juan Thomas rushed for 103 yards, 2 touchdowns. Charlie had 84 yards rushing, and the 90 Tomcats were off and running. You played Boyd County, which was weird, playing them second game of the year, And that game that was usually the last game and that meant everything in the world, and you played you coached in many of those games that, your whole season was on the line really when you played them. And this ended up not being a very good Boyd County team, to be honest, by the end of the year, but they gave you guys a run for it in the second week of the season.
Well, Juan sprained his ankle in the Raceland game. And it swelled up pretty good. I mean, he couldn't hardly walk on it. And so we were going to have to go into the Boyd County game without one. And, of course, we knew that. We still had Chris and we still had Charlie.
Right.
But we didn't have that third back to step in there and take over for Juan.
Do you recall that game? It was 21-13 was the final.
Yeah, I recall very well.
Yeah. I mean, it was tight all the way through, wasn't it? I mean, it was. I think you all were ahead most of the time, but it was.
Well, we went back to the I formation and put Charlie at fullback and put Chris at the tailback. And of course, we were a lot more limited there because we didn't have Juan in the backfield.
Right.
So they were able to key on Chris quite a bit. But Charlie, if my recollection serves me right, Charlie had a pretty good game.
Charlie, they both actually ended up having good games. Charlie had 103, and Chris Hunt had 144 and 2 touchdowns. But I think it seems like he got he broke a couple of long ones, so those numbers got a little inflated, because of his long touchdown runs, But yeah, because they did. I remember that too. They did key on him and try to take him away. He was hard to take away too because he's just.
Well,
he's just good.
He can run. I mean, I love Chris.
and you still had that great offensive line. Even though you didn't have one, you still had a great offensive line to run behind too. So
exactly.
Anyway, you won that game 21-13, and then here's the game you don't want to talk about. I'm sure it's Greenup County, and. Greenup was really good. Steve Dowdy was the quarterback. And,
yes.
And he was a good quarterback too. He did a great job. That Greenup team was really good. They ended up winning 10 games, I think, that year.
Yes, they did.
And they had to be good to beat you guys. And there's a couple of things I won't forget about that game is if memory serves, you guys were behind 18-15, which was the final score. But you had a first down inside the 10 and late in the game, and I think it was Juan that fumbled maybe. Somebody fumbled anyway. It might not have been Juan. It might have been somebody else, but that's my recollection. Or there was a handoff or something happened, and Greenup was able to recover and, kind of went from there.
Well, Mark, that game will haunt me for the rest of my life. I take total responsibility because I wanted to hold Vaughn out one more week because of that ankle. Now he did limited practice during the course of the week, but now he was dressed on the sidelines. But I waited too long to put him in the game, and we were already behind, and we just could not catch up. But one was ready to go, or at least he said he was. But, kids at that age are always ready to go.
Right, exactly.
but he still had swelling in the ankle. He still had some discoloration. And so I was trying to hold him out. I don't remember who we played the next week, but I knew it was an important game.
Yeah, you played Ironton the next week.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget that game either. But anyway, I kept holding him out. And the coaches were saying, put him in. And I kept thinking to myself, we don't need him to do this. And then when I finally put him in, he went nuts. But we couldn't catch up and win the game. So that game I put on my shoulders 100%.
Yeah. So, 18-15 loss. And in that game, Hutt ran for 91, and Juan came in and ran for 58. And I remember talking to you after that game, and you were talking on the radio right after you talked on the radio, and you were just so disappointed, because you felt like y'all let one get away, that.
Oh, we did. And of course, I'm not taking anything away from Green County. I hope Steve Dowdy was listening to this, because Steve Dowdy was a heck of a quarterback.
He was. They had a really good team too, and that was a great win for them. Of course, that turns out to be the only loss in that season. And you take off from here, but first you got to go play the big bad Iron Tigers at Tank, and never an easy place for anybody to play, and especially not the Tomcats. And they had a really good team that year as well, as they always do. I mean,
they were really good. They really were.
That was a great team. That game was rock'em sock'em football at its finest, and you guys pull out a 15-10 win, and barely pull it out, and you had 3 guys over 100 yards rushing in that game, which I doubt that's ever happened to a Bob Lutz coach team besides this game here. But Hutt rushed for 142, Charlie 103, and Juan 101 in just an unbelievable game, really.
Well, you got to remember, we had 2 touchdowns called back.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Which always happens over there. You always go get one called back. Juan scored, and they called it back.
Yeah. So that game could have been a little different, but anyway, it was a victory, and that was a good one. I think that was a sign for not only for your team, not only for the fans, but probably for your team as far as, hey, this is something special here, guys. This is big. We beat them over there, and we're rolling now. So that was a big win, I think, for that team. You lose that next game if you lost to Grant, and you lose again. It's kind of like you got to get kind of you question yourselves a little bit, I guess. Even if it is iron.
Losing to Greenup probably was the best thing that ever happened to us.
Yeah.
Really, because our kids were getting cocky. They thought that, they were pretty good, and which we were.
Right.
But, you can get overconfident as well as underconfident.
Right.
And we went over there to Ironton that night, and I just felt something in the aura of the team that they just felt like that, they could do it. And,
right.
Of course, I've taken teams over there that knew they were going to get beat, and that's the way they played.
Right.
But this team, I think, with having Juan back full speed, kind of gave a little boost to the whole team. But I remember late in the game, we needed a first down in order to be able to run out the clock. And we called a quick pitch with Chris Hutt. And Mitchell Kuntz made a crackback block that was unbelievable. He didn't weigh 120 pounds. And Jimmy Benting pulled out and blocked 2 corners, two defensive backs.
Wow.
And Chris Hutt scored, I don't remember how many yards he had to go for the first down, but he got that and more. And when I looked at the film, I just kept running that play back over and over and over. Thinking about the effort that a 120-pound kid gave, and then Jimmy Benting blocking 2 guys at the same time.
Wow.
And it worked for us to win the game. And, so those kind of plays just kind of stand out in your mind, all your life. Ironton was a great team.
Yeah, they went real deep in the playoffs that year. Maybe made it to the finals. Maybe I can't remember.
They did make it to the finals. I don't think it won the whole thing.
Yeah, they didn't win it. I know, and I think maybe the '89 team made the final. Anyway, they were. That was a great team in '90. So after that,
one postscript here, Mark. One postscript.
Yeah.
Bob Lutz came across the field, shook my hand, said, "Good game," and turned around and walked away.
There you go.
He didn't say move the big boy back to tight end.
Yeah, he might have said that before the game, but not after. So yeah, you guys kind of caught fire after that, really, and Juan especially. He had just let me rattle off some stats here. 4 straight games. 178 yards, 2 touchdowns, 175, 3 touchdowns, 112, 1 touchdown, 163, 129, 3 touchdowns. And that was against some pretty good people. You beat Paris 29-7. You wore out Madison Central 47-20. And this next game is one I want to talk about a little bit. It was Portsmouth. And that was another really good team that came to Putnam Stadium that year.
Oh yeah, they were good. I mean, Portsmouth is up and down, during the years, but normally they just really have good, solid football teams.
Right. Yeah, and I can't remember some of the players that year. I think an Estep was quarterback, maybe.
Yeah, I remember him well.
He was tough. Yeah. And I remember that game. I mean, what a great high school football game that was. And it was, not decided until late. And you guys pull out the win 26-18 over the Trojans. And Thomas had 112 yards and Charlie had 104 and a couple touchdowns. So, great effort, by the Tomcats to pull that one out. And, again, you're rolling now. And Henry Clay, anytime you play Lexington school, you just don't know. They're going to be good probably. And but you all shut them out, which I don't know. I think maybe – there weren't too many shutouts of Lexington teams ever, So
do what now?
I said there weren't too many shutouts of Lexington teams that in your career probably, or any,
no, Lord knows they were all pretty good usually.
Yeah, or any other Tomcat coach's career for that matter. But
yeah.
You beat them 34-0, and the following week you played Montgomery County, and man, 63-0 in that game, and we're just kind of rolling now. So the third week, 49-0. So that's 3 straight shutouts for this defense. And people were talking more, obviously, about Juan and the offense and all that, but it was a pretty good defensive team, too, wasn't it?
Oh, Mark, our defense, I always thought our defense made our offense go because our defense could make people make mistakes. Our defense could make turnovers. Our defense could stop you on 4th down when you need the 1st down. I mean, they were the unsung heroes of that year. Everybody wants to talk about the offense. But, I used to, on defensive days, I used to get those guys together and tell them how important they were and how valuable they were. And nobody was talking about them, but they were the backbone, really.
Right.
I mean, offense scores points, defense wins championships.
Right. That's exactly right. And, the following week you're playing Russell, and again, this was back then. This was for the district championship at that point.
Yes, it was.
You still had to beat them to get in. And Russell's always been pretty good, and these kids know each other. They know each other well. They played in the Kiwanis Bowl, and they all through the years have been rivals. But this time the Tomcats were just much better, and you beat the Red Devils 49-12 in Putnam Stadium to clinch the playoff spot. And Charlie had 117 yards and Juan had 109. Both of them scored 2 touchdowns. Russell was like anybody else. They just had a hard time matching up with those running backs and that great offensive line.
Well, Mark, I've told this story several times. When we decided to experiment with the wishbone, I was standing with Dave Arthur in the secondary, and Lee Evans was calling our offense in practice. And I looked up, and here comes Juan Thomas and Charlie Johnson running right at me with Chris Hutt with the ball behind them. And right there, I knew we had something. I mean, if I were a 150, 160-pound defensive back, you think I want to take on one as Charlie?
There's no way. Yeah.
And then try to tackle Chris Hunt, who could outrun me?
Yeah.
I mean, there's no way.
Yeah. So you knew this was going to be a hard offense to stop for any high school football team that you were going to play anyway, you know.
Certainly.
Yeah. So we start the playoffs, and it's a rainy Friday night in Putnam Stadium. It's November, first week of November. Clay County comes out of the mountains, and man, they weren't afraid of the Tomcats. I'll give them that. They came.
No, they were not. No, they were not.
They came to play, and we almost had a melee on the sidelines in the first half. I don't know exactly what happened, but it got pretty crazy there, didn't it?
Well, they had a tailback. I can't remember his name, but he was pretty good, and he supposedly had committed to Tennessee. Anyway, we had 5 films on this team, and every time at the close of the first half, if they had the ball, they ran the same play every time. And there's a little swing pass to the tailback out of the backfield. And so we worked on that. And if you look at the film, Charlie Johnson, who was defensive tackle to the right side, it was just a couple of seconds before halftime, but they had the ball, and they ran this play. They ran that tailback out in the flat, out in the swing area. Well, Charlie Johnson didn't even rush. He knew what was coming. And so he just kind of sit there until they set it up, and then he went out and was going to make the tackle, but it was so muddy. And he got a hold of his jersey, and then Dwight Walters comes in and cleans up, and then next thing I know, both bitches are after each other. I mean, I have no idea what happened.
Yeah, I remember just watching it from the press box going, what is going on? And I mean, you know, both teams were pouring onto the field, and the refs were trying to separate people, and coaches were trying to push people back, and you know, it was getting pretty frisky out there for sure.
Well, it scared me to death. I can tell you that. I've never been involved in anything like that.
Yeah, and you know, thank goodness they got things. I mean, police were coming out there. Thank goodness they did get everybody under control, and probably it was a good thing that there was not much time left in the half that they could, okay, you know, we'll play the second half and you know, get this game done instead of them canceling the game or something else, you know.
The funny thing is, the officials came to me. There was only a couple of seconds left on the clock. The officials came to me and said, it's either halftime or we're going to have to start kicking people out of the game. And we're going to start with number 84. And I said, halftime.
No problem, halftime.
No problem, halftime.
Yeah. So, well, anyway, the good news is you ended up winning that game 27-15, and you know, hard fought football game as you expect from the mountain teams in Kentucky. And the next week you have to go to Belfry, and you know, this is the Belfry team that wore you guys out the year before, 31-14. And
yeah.
If I recall, that first half there of the game up there, they wore you out again. And I think they were ahead maybe 20-0 at halftime or 20-6. They were ahead, I know, at halftime.
Yeah. Well, they scored 2 touchdowns before we even put our defense on the field.
Yeah, right. That's what it was. Yeah.
Remember, we turned the ball over early twice, and they scored twice.
Right.
And you know, and all I remember about that game in the first half was Jimmy Benteen coming off the field, and said, "Boys, we haven't even played defense yet. Get it together." I mean, he was being a leader, and then Walden was saying basically the same thing. And you know, so what we had at that point, Mark, was leadership showing up from 17, 18-year-old kids. Because I didn't say anything. I didn't have to. They took control of the game after that second touchdown. And then maybe, like I said, I know that I'm pretty sure they were ahead at halftime
but it was, you all had kind of righted the ship a little bit, you know.
We made a run at them, but no, we were behind at halftime. You're right. I don't remember the score. Like I said, I don't remember any scores.
Yeah, right. Well, you know, final stats in that game, at least the two leading rushers, Hudd had 166, Thomas 141, so over 300, you know, between those guys. So obviously, you know, you had your way with them in the second half. You ended up winning the game 35-20, and that puts you in the state semifinals. And state semifinals.
Well, let me go back to the Belfry game.
Okay.
The play that opened it up for us, believe it or not, was a pass play. I mean, truly it was. We had about a 3rd and 4, and we called the back play, play action pass, where Chris Hutt came out of the backfield. Okay. And he caught it because all their defensive backs they were cheating so close to the line of scrimmage.
Oh, yeah.
And Chris ran right by him, caught the ball, and scored. And from that point on, the game was ours.
Yeah, because they had to back up. They had to honor that at least, didn't they?
Yes, they had to back up because Chris and Juan were our two best receivers. Really, it was Chris and Juan out of the backfield.
Right. So yeah. Anyway, big win, beat Belfry 35-20 at their place, which is hard to beat them at Zifferman Field, and you all were able to do that. And that set up a date with Bell County in Putnam Stadium in the state semifinals. And man, that was maybe, I still think that's probably the best high school football game I can remember watching over there. And it was just great football. Both teams were good. Both teams were tough. And, you know, it was survival of the fittest for sure.
Well, you know, to me, we played the state championship team at Putnam Stadium that night.
Yeah.
That was the state championship game. Because the next week against Lincoln, you know,
yeah.
You know, it's nice going to Louisville and doing all that, but I'm telling you, Bell County was loaded, and they were good.
They were good.
And of course, I know Dudley Hilton. I've known him for years, and he is a great coach. Although he comes across as a country bumpkin sometimes, but he's a great coach, and he's won everywhere he's been.
Right.
But, I mean, it really was. It was a knockdown drag out. And I love those kind of games, particularly when you come out ahead.
Right. Those are nice when you win them. And you all won at 19-14. Juan had 121 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns. Charlie had 69 yards. Just a great game, though. Both teams, like you said, whoever was going to win that game was going to be the state champ. You may not have known it at the time, but you knew it probably after you started watching film the next week, and you thought, yeah, either one of us would have won it. That does put you in the finals, and of course, you know, Louisville Cardinal Stadium, exciting. I do remember one thing though from that semifinal game. Juan hurt his knee in that game.
Yes, he did.
Pretty bad actually. In that state semifinal game, and was kind of iffy for if he could play even, and I think he had trouble cutting one way or the other because of it. It was like a slight ACL tear maybe or something. He could still play, but he wasn't going to maybe be as effective. I know you didn't talk about that, and of course you didn't. You know, you didn't talk about that before the game to let them know, obviously. So they still had to honor Juan in that state championship game, and they did. They kind of keyed on Juan, actually. I think, you know, trying to take him away.
They did. They took him out of the game, but if you'll remember. Go back and watch the film on it. We never ran one except straight ahead.
Right.
We never called a play. Well, there was 1 or 2 plays we called, and you know, just to see if he could cut.
Right.
And he couldn't, and so he was good to go. We knew he had a problem. We didn't know how bad it was.
Right.
The trainer okayed him to play.
Yeah.
And I was more concerned about him on defense than I was on offense. But my goodness, he played a heck of a defensive game.
He was all. I've watched that video several times, and it's amazing the tackles he made on the other side of the field.
I know.
From defensive end spot, which he was he was as good a defensive end as he was a running back, and that's hard to believe, but he was. I mean, he was a first-team All-State defensive end, actually.
Well, nobody could block him. I mean, first of all, nobody could block him, and that was the big thing. Well, one was such an athlete.
And it helped your defense a lot too, I think, Vic, because they ran away from him, and everybody knew they were going to. So everybody knew where the ball was going about every time. So that helps, you know. That game though, the championship game, Chris Hutt goes crazy in that game, and a lot of it was they were keying on one. A lot of it was Chris Hutt's just daggone fast, and you put him on turf, and he's even faster. And he had 175 yards and 3 touchdowns in that game. And Charlie barreled through there for 126 yards and 2 touchdowns in the championship game. One didn't have as many, but was just as big a factor in the game as anybody else. And really, he won convincingly, 35-13. And I remember Vic watching the 4A game after that. I can't remember who played. It was either Trinity or St. X or one of them was in the final, I think. And thinking, I think Ashland could have beat them. I mean, there's not many years you say that, but it's like you said, how do you stop Juan Thomas, Chris Hutt, David Brown, Charlie Johnson coming at you with a great offensive line? I mean, I just have to think you all could have moved the ball against anybody.
Well, I think so too. But, the thing of it was, they didn't know that one was limited. Right. And so they came into the game deciding we're going to take – now, we had 3 great backs, and they're going to take one of them out of the game. Right. And they did. If you go back and look at the film, the defensive end to one side, submarine, the tight end, the tackle, whoever was there, every time, so that he just made a big stack so one didn't have anywhere to go. Right. Now, you want to take the one out of the game? Okay, fine. I'm good with that. We still got Starley and Chris. Yeah, we got one of them. We're going to run to Charlie and Chris, and they couldn't stop either one of them. Right. Yeah, I remember Chris having some wide open territory, and when he's got green like that, it's not good news for the other guys. That's for sure. Well, he didn't score on this play, but he had about a 35-yard run one time where he got out on the corner and he came to a dead stop. And the defensive back came up to make a hit, and he just stepped around him and kept going. I mean, you put Chris Hutt on turf and he could run. Oh, yeah. Unbelievable. We've talked about Jimmy Benteen. Let's talk about a couple of some of these other linemen. Stuart Hackworth, wow, what can you say about that guy? He was incredible. Jay Hale was another starting lineman. You might have to help me here. Jason Suman. Oh yeah, Jason Suman, great lineman. Jimmy Benteen, of course. And you had who else are we talking about there that I'm missing? You have a guy. Tex Man. Yeah, Tex Man. That's who I was trying to think of. He came in for a year for Tex. Yeah, McRae Man is what I have him listed. McRae Man, yes. Yeah, and you had a couple of tight ends. You had one named Scott Marsh, who was a sophomore. How sweet was it, Vic, that Scott obviously just got to blocking, all season long, but to be even a part of that team and a part of that your championship team there, how nice was that for you as a coach and a dad? Well, Mark, I mean, what can you say? It was special. It was very special. And we thought going into season, we had Bobby LeMaster, who was 6'8" or whatever he was. Oh, yeah. It's a senior tight end. But first of all, we knew we weren't going to throw the ball that much. And Scott could catch the ball. Right. But we wanted him to learn that type of, because if you go back and look at the statistics of any year I coached, I will guarantee you our tight end was our leading receiver. I love throwing to the tight ends. Right. And I wanted Scott to learn that there's more to playing a receiver than catching the ball. Right. And so, yes, he played quite a bit. He probably played as much as anybody else. Scott Crawford played quite a bit. Bobby LeMaster played quite a bit. Right. But But I watched that state championship game, and some of those runs that Charlie Johnson was making, Scott Marsh was out in front of him.
Yeah, I don't doubt that. Scott's such a good athlete, you know.
And that's very special to me because he learned his role and he accepted it.
Yeah, that's good. A couple other guys I think we need to mention. Of course, you mentioned him once. Dwight Walters, just, you know, gosh, he was a really good player. And Brett Robinson, you know, another guy that stuck in there with you, and those guys weren't afraid to hit anybody. That's for sure. Those two guys.
Oh no, they were great. And you know, the thing of it is, neither one of them played as juniors.
Is that right? Wow.
Yeah, they both came out as seniors, and of course, they both had played all the way through.
Right.
But they finally decided baseball was not their game necessarily, so they both came out, and both of them turned out to be great defensive backs.
Oh yeah, they were tough. They were good. You had a kicker.
They were very coachable. And, and to be honest with you, what it did for us, to having two athletes like that, because they were both great athletes,
right,
was that we could turn them loose so that we could do other things with our linebackers. You know, we could play a man coverage, so we could stun our linebackers or send our linebackers or play games with our defensive tackles.
I know. Who were your linebackers? Was Stewart one of them?
Stuart Hackworth and oh my goodness. I'm embarrassed. Herb Skaggs.
Oh yeah, Herb Skaggs. Yes, a senior there. He was tough. Yeah. David Daniel played some, I think, maybe. And
yes, David was the backup running back and a backup defensive back.
You also had a kicker named Clayton Hill, who came off the soccer field and really gave you guys a big lift. You know, he was tough, man. He was tough. He had a great career, really. You know, in one season.
Yeah, well, you know, Clayton just kind of fit right in. Everybody who came from Texas, and we didn't get him eligible till the night of the first game against Racing. And he came right in, fit right in, and kids accepted him. Clayton came right off the soccer field. He just wanted to kick, and the kids just rallied around him. Now, I don't think Clayton would have ever kicked the ball too far past the upright. I mean, he made him. That was all amazing.
Yeah, he's 5 for 5 in the state championship on extra points, and that's good. You know, he'll take it. That's for sure. Mitchell Kuntz, we mentioned. You know, he was a good downfield blocker. As you know, he's a split end for you. Not that you used the split end too much, but you did occasionally. And Mitchell caught the ball a lot the next season for sure. He was really a good receiver. You just weren't going to throw with this team. I mean,
the next year we had Chad Salyer. Chad could run and throw. And so we kind of tried to mix it up between throwing it and run the opposite. And I won't make any apologies for this. I love running the opposite. I loved it.
Oh, yeah, it was great.
And when you got somebody like Chad Salyer who can run it and throw it, then you got something.
Exactly.
Now, David Brown, my goodness, like I said, he had ice water in his veins.
He was tough, man. He was tough. Another receiver, I'm looking here, Matt Wheeler, who was another split in for you, and caught a couple passes for 24 yards, and Kuntz caught a couple passes for 27. That doesn't sound like much, but when a team only has,
47.
18 completions. So that's a lot. Your two leading receivers, and you mentioned this before, that your two best receivers were probably Juan Thomas and Chris Hutton. They both had 5 catches each, so they led the team, with that. But, what a memorable year. What a great year for the Tomcats. What a great year for you and Scott. A memory that, even if Scott hadn't played, it would have been a great memory. But, man, it makes it just like 1,000 times better having been on the team and, and being a part of that. But,
we were with Scott 2 weeks ago after a game, and he made a comment that, he played on a state championship. He coached for 2 state championships in Indiana,
Yeah.
And he said the older he got, the more he appreciated playing on that state championship as a sophomore.
I bet.
And that really meant something to me.
Absolutely. I mean, that, you know, and he wasn't just a player that put in because the coach's name was Marsh either. He earned his time on there.
Oh, he was an athlete. Scott was an athlete.
He's a legitimate player. Another guy I think that played some for Tony Pierce. He was I think he was a backup lineman, but he filled in pretty well at times. You know, when
he was on a long snapper. He was on a long snapper. Tony was.
Okay, yeah, Tony. Anyway, I know we're, you know, I can't mention everybody, but you know, there's a lot of you know, a lot of great players on this team, and it's interesting. You know, looking back at these stats are just like phenomenal. I mean, my gosh, it's unbelievable. One had 1,682 yards, Chris 1,483, Charlie 1,270, and those guys combined for nearly 50 touchdowns. I mean, those are just crazy numbers, really. That you know, getting to know those kids, and I want to mention your coaches too. You've mentioned some of them, but Dave Arthur, Bill Blake, Lee Evans, Eric Johnson, Matt Lambert, Ron Moore, Steve Salyers, and Mike Van Hoos. Did I leave anybody out?
No, you got them all, I think.
Okay. All contributors, all, you know, like you said, David really kind of set the wishbone in motion, I guess, and Lee was calling the plays, and what an easy job he had, by the way. How could you go wrong, you know? Yeah, he did. You know, he did a great job out there for you. And Steve Salyers with that line, I know he was excited about those guys and fired up about them. All those guys, you know, just outstanding coaches. And Vic, you're such a good coach. Your teams are always so prepared. I love that about your teams more than anything else. You could tell you knew what the other guy was doing. You didn't always stop them because sometimes the other guy's better. You know, it's just kind of the way it is.
Mark, I appreciate that. But, you know, one of the things that I'm really proud of about that 90 team was that Steve Salyer, Dave Arthur, and Lee Evans all played for me every time or another. They were all Tomcats. I coached all three of them. And they were just great guys. We had great camaraderie together. Yeah,
you definitely did. I'll mention one other player just before we leave, and that's Mark Washington, who ends up the next couple of seasons being a really key running back for you. And I think, you know, an outstanding running back in Ashland history. I mean, he really was a very good player. And he actually scored 3 touchdowns. So I know in these games, a lot of these times when you're way ahead, you were so good about playing people too. And I think maybe Herb taught you that a little bit. You know, there's no sense running it up on everybody.
No, it'll come back to haunt you.
I keep looking at this roster. Here's a couple more I want to mention. Calvin Troxler, who was a sophomore that year, who ended up being a really good player for you. I don't know. I can't remember how much he played that year. And,
well, he was mainly on special teams.
Okay.
But, you know, he started his junior and senior year wide receiver and free safety. And Mark Washington went on to a college career that was just outstanding in the Ivy League.
Princeton.
Princeton.
He went to Princeton. You know, there's just a whole lot of good players on this team. Tyler Huffman was a senior lineman. I'm not sure, can't remember how much he played. There's some other guys, but anyway, just a tremendous overall team that you all put together. And you know, Ashland will never forget the 1990 Tomcats. I mean, they just won't. You're in the books as a state champion, and 14-1 season. You know, one of the greatest seasons in Ashland history. And Vic, you were such a good coach for a long time, and it's tough to hang in there as long as you did too. Now, and because they're with you win or tie. You know, that's
there's something to be said about longevity.
Well, there is for sure, but you did a great job. You're always great with the kids. They loved you. They played hard for you, and you were great with the press too. Even in disappointing times, and as far as the press being me anyway. So,
well, Mark, I've told you this before, and I want to say it again.
you were always fair. You were always fair. You were honest sometimes, but you were always fair.
Well, I appreciate that. I guess that's what you strive for anyway. Be fair about it. But anyway, I appreciate you taking the time, and I'm going to get you on another time, and we're going to talk more about some of those other great games throughout your career that were just unbelievable. Really, I think about that. I guess it was the '82 team that beat that really good Bryan Station team. That had all the NFL guys on it. We got to talk about that. And you have so many highlights. It's hard for me to know where to go with you. But anyway, I will get back with you again. But I appreciate you joining us on Tomcat Tales. And I hope you enjoyed listening to Vic talk about the 1990 Tomcats, one of the greatest football teams I've ever seen, one of the greatest football teams in Ashland history. Certainly 67 and 90 and 75. Those three teams are the ones people really talk about. When you have champions like that, it makes a big difference. But anyway, thanks again, and thanks for listening, and I hope you join us next time on Tomcat Tales.